Well, we like to show you familiar faces that you can't connect with a name, perhaps, or maybe used to, called Dooley. But I think you're becoming more famous as you do more work.
My name is beginning to emerge now.
Does that make you feel better?
Yeah, it's twice as good as the other half, which was just knowing my face.
Well, I've heard actors say, "No, I don't care as long as I get paid." I never always believed that, but that seems to be a standard response to the kind of a question about identity.
I would like not to get to a place where you couldn't go to a restaurant or walk down the street or go to an amusement park without, you know, taking time out to talk to everybody who wanted to talk to you.
Yeah.
You went there with your kids, and it's no fun for them to wait while you sign your name or discuss something.
People don't understand the loss of privacy is an enormous loss.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really suffered that yet. I'm just kind of beginning to get...
Yeah.
I've always sort of been stopped for the last 15 years because I've done a tremendous number of commercials. So people will always talk to me in cabs and news dealers and
Which commercial
waitresses.
would you say, Paul, was the one that really gave you an identity in the business?
Well, a long time ago, maybe 18 years, I did a commercial for Fab, the soap. And the client took a look at the finished commercial and said, "I love this guy," and they signed me to be their spokesman. So for a year, I did nothing but, I did 27 on-camera Fab commercials.
Really.
And by the time I finished with that, then I just went on, and I could always make commercials. Everybody knew who I was. I was that guy who did that campaign.
Right.
And I had gone on to do a whole year's worth of work for M&M Candies once. It was an unusual campaign where the spokesman was shot from a cannon in one, dropped from a skydiver in another, I mean, on a bucking bronc in another, and never did the ever melt in your hand.
Right.
Even though I was scared to death. That was the campaign, and that was fun to do.
Well, now, right now, you're very subdued. Your character that we identify with as being on is not the same. Does that mean that you are really another person when you're emoting and acting? Your voice gets higher pitched, I think. You're more...
Yeah, different things happen. I kind of divide actors into two groups, especially people who do comedy, which I do a lot of. One group is the actors who just take their own personality and heighten it a little bit, and always play that same personality in every movie or every play,
Yeah.
every TV show. And other actors always want to forget their personality and become whatever the part seems to ask for, and I'm in that latter group. I'm much happier behind a mustache or with a funny hat or with glasses or something, a nice, interesting costume, which takes me into the character, dialect or something like that.
Quite often, that's why people become actors and
Sure.
actresses, to escape...
Being themselves, really.
Yeah. Why is that? You seem like a very charming off-camera. We have a good time talking. You don't seem
Well,
inordinately
lots
shy
of people,
or anything.
lots of people who seem like regular people, we never know quite what they feel inside.
Yeah.
If they're insecure, if they feel like they don't belong, they don't fit. Many actors are shy, a great many of them, although the reverse is what people believe, because they seem to be flamboyant and not afraid to walk on a stage and stand up in front of a crowd.
Right.
But they truly are shy, and they get into acting as a place to either channel it or hide behind. They're not really themselves up there, they're someone else.
I wonder, therefore, if we get a very distorted view of life from actors and actresses who are all, or a majority seem to be shy, misanthropic people, perhaps.
Well,
Because that's not what the average person is, or maybe it is, I don't know.
except that in the process of playing these other parts, actors, peculiar to them, they have a talent for portraying emotions and personality traits and other people. Even though they may be shy, they can play bravado. I'm essentially a fairly shy person. I don't go to a lot of parties, and I might stand in a corner at a party and not entertain or put a lampshade on my head. I mean, just fairly subdued.
Well, I think we're all shy, if that's the barometer of being, if you don't put a lampshade on your head, you're
But you'd
shy.
expect an actor among anybody, he would be the one who would be the life of the party. Yet when I get on stage, for example, in Breaking Away, the film that is currently being released, he's very flamboyant. He's like angry. He's kind of, superior. He's kind of putting people down. He's sarcastic. He doesn't look like he's shy.
Well, I think your characterization in Breaking Away is really wonderful. I think you're really a consummate actor. I've watched you for years, even in commercials. I thought you brought something to it. Let's talk again about commercials for a moment. Do you feel any sense of prostitution about commercials in terms of acting?
No.
For yourself or anyone else?
No, many people do, and I run into that sometimes. Yeah. They think, well, he's just a commercial actor. That's not acting. I've had cab drivers. I always talk to cab drivers because you're in the cab with them. And they always talk to me about, if they recognize me.
Right.
So you can always get a conversation from a New York cab driver. And they say, gee, I saw you in this, you were terrific. And then they say to me, do you ever think about going into acting? But I always think that was acting. You
Of
know,
course.
I act just as good or as hard or as the best I can in a commercial
Well,
as I do in a film.
Well, that was Charlton Heston's greatest claim to fame for years. He said that when he did what was the greatest show on earth, some woman wrote and said, "How did you ever get that guy who ran the circus to act that well?" She thought he ran the circus, and they hired
That's
him.
terrific. She'd never seen Charlton Heston
Yeah,
before.
right. Well, it was kind of the beginning of his career. It was 25 years ago.
That's true. It was a long time ago.
So,
Well, it's a compliment,
yes, right.
you know, if someone thinks you're like that.
Well, I presume that it also honed your skills in acting.
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, no matter what reason, you're learning to emote and represent something, which is what acting is.
Although I had done about a half a dozen parts in small parts in films prior to doing Wedding with Robert Altman, I remember somebody saying to me after we saw a few dailies the first week or so, they says, "Boy, you seem to really know your way around a camera, and this is really your first big part. How do you know so much about what to do?" I says, "Well, if you stand in front of a camera doing commercials, the camera doesn't know it's a commercial. I mean, your relationship with the camera and the lights and how you handle yourself in that frame is the same." So I came to it with, 500 commercials under my belt. It was like having film experience. It was film experience.
In the role of the father in Breaking Away, you represent, how could we simply describe it, the town group, more blue-collar representation of forces against the upper-class, snobbish, in college.
Yeah, I'm a working
terrible
class.
oversimplification, but
Yeah,
trying to keep it.
I'm a working class father, and my son, who naturally would kind of stay in that class of the working class. But we live in a college town, so it becomes a consideration that he should go to college even if he didn't have any aspirations.
Right.
So him breaking out of the mold of going from his class to the other class is a big jump for him. And the father, the part I play, he's not sure if he wants him to do it or not. On the one hand, he wants to see his son improve and do better than he did. But on the other hand, he feels if his son doesn't do what he did, it's a sort of a denial of his father.
Right.
That it makes it as if what he did isn't important or isn't worthwhile. He was a stone cutter for in a mill, a limestone mill, for 20 years. And just before the film begins, he takes a job selling used cars because he thinks that might be a better income for his family, but he doesn't like it. His mind is back in the mill where honest work and a man could do with his hands. And
Right.
it's a wonderful film and its implications about how people relate to each other kind of based on class sometimes and how you keep yourself in your own class frequently.
Right.
When America is a place where you can really get out.
Well, Peter Yates, the director, who's Scottish, said that he never thought of America being a class society, but there, of course, there are distinctions in our society.
We just don't call them by the names,
Yeah.
like working class, tradesman,
Right.
upper class, aristocracy. But it's here.
Yeah.
It's based on economics.
How about your background? What is your personal background?
I was born and raised in West Virginia, which is not very far in type from the Kentucky guy I played in Wedding and the Indiana guy I played in Breaking Away. So I was able to draw on my own background, people I knew. Also, the dialect I had when I was growing up was close to that kind of dialect, and I used parts of it. And very specifically, I used a lot of my father in the man I play in Breaking Away. So if it has a ring of truth to the viewers, to people to see the movie, it's partly because it comes very personally to me from my own father.
Well, what did your father do, or
He
does?
was a factory worker. My father is not with us anymore, but about 5 years ago he passed away. But he worked in a factory all his life and never very highly paid and not particularly with a skill which you could take someplace else. He was just a factory worker. He was very good with his hands. He would come home from being a factory worker and go to his workshop and make something for himself, you know. So he was a manual kind of...
Well, now, what did he think of you being an actor?
We never talked about it too much. He never discouraged me. He never encouraged me. It was sort of a, that's what you want to do, go ahead. But,
Yeah. He didn't think there was some denial of good hard work ethic that's...
I have a feeling that secretly he would have liked me to have been interested in. He was a very good carpenter. He was a mechanic. But whatever turned me in another direction, a more artistic direction, I can't be sure. But secretly, I would imagine he wished he could have taught me his craft.
Well, I was trying to relate it to you talking about you drawing the feelings of this father who was a stonecutter, became a used car salesman, and yet wasn't sure he wanted his son to get so much better than
That's
him.
right.
How that relates to you and yourself and your father.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we never talked about it. And
Well, few do.
I know the qualities in the father in Breaking Away, that he loves his son and he does feel close to him, but because of his background and the class he's in and being a man in our culture, once the kid's beyond 6 or 7 years old, he can't embrace him and he can't show any open emotion. And my father had the same thing, and many of our fathers had the same thing. It's very common.
Well, those days are ending, aren't they? My father never hugged me or kissed me, but I certainly hug my big gangling boy now, and I'm presuming
I think they are
too.
changing a lot, and I think it's terrific.
Yeah.
It'll be hard fought. I mean, it'll be another 100 years before we get to there, but a lot of things are happening in our generation, the last 10 years especially. All those things through the civil rights and the human rights movements have affected all of us in ways like this that we can't even measure, if we can actually be a little more open.
Do you look upon what you do for a living, acting, as being involved in those changing things in our society, or is it, that's a very grand statement to make, and a lot of actors are afraid to admit that. Say, no, I do it to make money, because I like to do it, period.
I can't say that I don't do it either to make money or to make changes or to be a social, a person who makes a difference. I personally and consciously don't think of either end of that. I enjoy doing it, and when I can make a lot of money, that's terrific. But if it paid medium money or low money, I would still do it.
Right.
And that's why I say I work as hard at a commercial as I do at a command performance with Olivier on the stage in London. To me, it's like doing the best I can at what I like to do, and my joy comes from doing it as well as I can. And I think the theater and the movies reflect, as do novels and art. They often reflect the changes in the country more than lead it. Although I think this is a kind of an important film in a way, because just showing people the possibilities of changing a little bit in terms, let's say, showing your emotion to a son from a father, just showing them that picture and dramatizing for them, making them feel, it just might make a little bit of difference in a lot of people. It may make that much difference, but that's a lot.
Oh, I hear people express some rather remarkable things about this film. And it's always a pleasure.
Tears in his eyes the other night as the film finished.
Yeah.
He was talking to a reporter that I met earlier today.
Yeah.
And when I watch it, and I did it, and I learned the lines, and acted it, and repeated it in several takes, I get a lump in my throat when I embrace my son in that scene.
Yeah. That's extraordinary, because we're so used to bad movies being overhyped and sold and stuffed down our throats that to find a movie suddenly, it seems, coming out of nowhere, not that it really is coming out of nowhere, but there's no big thing.
Ballyhoo, and there's no stars to speak of.
It's really, I think everybody rejoices that the art form can still be alive and rebound from all the big names and all that crap.
And there's no car crashes, no murders, no nude scenes.
No chases.
It's just a good movie.
That's right. You must be very proud and feel good about it.
Yeah, I love it.
To say the least.
I'm very pleased to be associated with it. And I knew it from the very beginning, because I read the script and I sort of knew this was a special script.
Really?
Yeah, because it really has a lot of integrity to it.
Well, it's very difficult to make a good movie.
Sure
a lot of different things happen to happen. I think there's some luck involved, too. That you've just been fortunate to be in one of those movies that happened
Everything came together.
And it's probably become a classic.
It's a wonderful script, and Peter's a very sensitive, understanding director, and he picked a terrific cast, including me. I think it was very good for that part.
I couldn't agree more.
And it all just looked like you wouldn't want to see anybody else in that movie except those people who did it.
Now, any commercials we're going to see you in? Let's go back to the other side of your career.
Well, I've had to put my commercials on the shelf for the last 2 years. I did 5 movies in 2 years, and it's kept me hopping from different L.A. and Waukegan, and I was in St. Pete with Health, and all around the country. So whenever I go back to New York, though, if those things come up, I still do those things,
But you wouldn't do Fab again for a year's contract.
I probably wouldn't sign on a contract thing.
Okay. Paul Dooley, thanks very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We'll be right back.